Hey everybody, and welcome to Adobe Live. I have music playing in my ears because sorry, 1 second, Paco. I need a mute. Okay. I don't hear myself anymore. Hey everybody. My name's Gus Martin, and I'll be your host today and tomorrow. For this awesome live stream, we've got Noelle Stransky joining us. Noelle was live with us, 2 years ago?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was live with us 2 years ago. She did a mobile app, and we're going to be doing another mobile app today on a different topic. I'm excited to see how that happens. But first, let's say hi to everybody in the chat. Who do we got here? We got Val of Corn. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Laura, Adelia. Tell me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Perry, Jack, thanks for joining us. We're really happy to see you. Thanks, Jack. Okay, cool. Without further ado, Noelle, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody that's watching?
Sure, sounds great. And thank you everyone for joining. So hey, my name is Noelle. And actually, if you guys want to hop on over to my slides, I am a senior product designer. And I've got the kind of quick little intro here that I'll run through. So I have been designing for about 12 years, which was kind of crazy, actually writing that down and putting it into a number. I've got a wide variety of experience working from like tiny little 5-person startups to Fortune 500 companies. And currently I'm working with Riot Games.
I think that's a lot of people's dream job.
Yeah.
Pretty sweet.
I am incredibly grateful that I'm working there. It was one of my dream jobs, and I kind of pursued it for a couple of years. So I'm super stoked to be a part of the team.
Yeah, and maybe we can talk a little bit later in the show about your journey, your career journey, and what you did to get there.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's kind of a funky journey. For like a little bit of background on some of the types of work that I do. So I've had almost kind of 2 parallel tracks within my design career. So I've done a bunch of work on gaming consoles, working at Xbox on the Xbox 360 launch. Then also spent some time at DirecTV working on television interfaces and different products to support games outside of actual games. And then at the same time, I've also done a lot of work inside of mobile. So I've experienced working on really, really big screens and very tiny screens.
Yeah. We have folks in chat saying that's very cool, Riot Games. And also, we have a viewer from Egypt, one from Washington, D.C., Milano, Western Canada, the Netherlands. We have an extremely global audience today, which is
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us. I've been super lucky to work with a bunch of amazing mobile development teams over the years. I've shipped about 6 different mobile applications, both in iOS and Android, working with probably 4 or 5 different teams of just amazing developers. So yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's super, super fun.
Like you said, it's probably strange to think back and say, okay, I've been designing for 12 years, but like think about all of the cool things that you've created that have like gone into real people's hands and made their lives better in many ways. So
it's super, super cool to like think about and also super fun.
Yeah. Cool.
Quick little aside. So in my free time, I actually do a lot of volunteering with Burning Man and work on kind of big art installations, usually playing around with power tools. So like in my free time, I'm making weird stuff for Burning Man and art events.
Do we have any Burning Man friends in chat? Let us know if you've been there, or just let us know if you've heard of it. Our very own Pac-Man, the one and only Paco, the man behind our Wizard of Oz, so to speak, is a big Burning Man fan.
Yeah, it's the thing that feeds my heart. And it's really great as a designer too to work on something like analog, something that's like not a computer software, and apply some of the same skills that I have in the design industry to like building a big art piece or a camper van.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think like, your creativity is definitely not confined to a screen and some artboards. It's really cool to see you applying it this way. Oh, look, we got Perry Freeze, fellow burner and recipient of Noelle's fantastic support. Do you know Perry?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for joining us, Perry.
Yay. Thanks for joining, friends.
So we've got Burning Man, near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
And then we've got number 2, especially over this last year. I think many of us are familiar with this game.
Yeah. So when I was approached and I was to come and do a live stream, like the first thing I thought about was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to design? And like thinking about the last year, especially being in quarantine, I found Animal Crossing kind of right after the shutdowns and realized that I pretty much lived my life in Animal Crossing last year.
I think a lot of us did.
Yeah. It was like a perfect stress-free home to funnel all of my anxiety.
I think you have a birthday picture on here, and
yeah.
it's so touching. The birthday Animal Crossing makes you feel so special.
It was so sweet. Yeah, because especially like I think I did like a Zoom call birthday this last year. Yeah, this one up here is from the little birthday celebration. And then the one in the middle is actually from New Year's. And like I felt the same way about New Year's, like being able to go somewhere and like there's already a party happening. And granted, it's just in a game, but it was still really fun.
And yeah, really pretty. Like I remember the fireworks being like vivid and cool, and I agree. It was one of those moments where you're like, I probably shouldn't feel emotional right now because I'm looking at a video game, but I kind of do.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
No, so that's where like Animal Crossing is my jam, and that's where I spent like a lot of time last year. So I figured it would be a fun project to work on for this live stream.
Yes. Also, people watching, we're going to probably need some of your ideas as we go, because I'm sure you might have opinions or suggestions on the game or the experience.
Yeah.
So stick around for that.
Exactly. So a little bit about my process and like coming up with ideas. And I'd love to hear any suggestions that folks have in chat. So when thinking about like, okay, what should I design? And this is also a good exercise to do, like if maybe you're starting off and you really want to work in a particular industry, but you haven't done any work in that industry yet, is try to think about the problems that you've experienced with something and how you might solve them, and create a case study or an example design for your portfolio.
Yeah, I think this is a really great idea. And I come across it every now and then when folks are especially able to tell that full story, like in their project, like outlining how did they approach this, what were they solving for, and they like lay out beginning to end what transpired. It really helps you get a glimpse into like their mind and how they problem solve. And it isn't so much about the end result, it's more about that process, which I think can be very valuable, especially if you're starting out.
Exactly. And like process is huge for product UX, UI designers. Like we want to see how you think, how you solve problems, and kind of all the messy bits in between. So yeah, this is always good because I have chatted with a lot of folks who are like, oh, how do I get into the gaming industry? And sometimes it can be hard. So like working on side projects that you're passionate about definitely shows hiring managers at gaming companies that like the passion is there and that you're really excited to work on gaming products.
Yeah, that's really true. And I mean, they should just follow along and listen to you as you work, because I think you'll be a really good glimpse into like how it works and what the process looks like. And I think it'll be super valuable.
Thanks. Yeah. And it's a really good way to frame it. So when I was thinking about this, there's a couple like frustration points that I've had playing Animal Crossing myself. So guilty pleasure wise, it was just like, okay, let's design those then. One area of opportunity, and actually probably to back up really quick, for folks that haven't played Animal Crossing, it's a social life simulator game. So you have an island, you can decorate the island itself, you have neighbors that you chat with and build relationships with, you plant flowers and create a community. And you can also visit other people's islands and trade within them as well too.
Yeah, there's a whole economy. And you can, I think, even trade villagers in some way, like they're coveted villagers.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And they're like, this game is, there's like tons of third-party markets that people go to and like trade goods and items that you've gotten. So you're kind of incentivized like get as much as you can, as you can sell it on the third-party markets.
It's wild to me that we live in a world where that's possible, but it happens with almost every video game nowadays. So
Yeah, it's really cool to see. So one of my pain points was actually fossils. So there's a set number of fossils that you can collect in the game, but the game doesn't have any UI telling you whether you've gotten all of them. So the only way you can figure that out is if you run through the entire museum in the game and look at every item and like double check that it says it's completed.
you know what's really funny about that? They solve that for the other collectibles, right? Like you know which fish you've caught, or butterflies, you know, or bugs.
Yeah.
But not fossils.
Yeah. And I'm sure the team at Nintendo has like a super legit reason why. But just from like my perspective, I'm like, well, let's make a UI that helps with that.
Yeah. We're trying to make a museum here.
Yeah.
Like a fossil museum.
Yeah, exactly. One other feature that I was thinking about that would also be fun to kind of walk through. I found like when I was inviting people over to my island, you go to the airport and you talk to the guy at the airport and he opens up your gates, and then sometimes we'll give you a special code that you have to give to people. So what I noticed is between myself and my friends, we were all taking like camera screenshots of the TV of our Switch. So maybe another feature that we can play around with during the course of the live stream is like a way to nicely share the Dodo code on your phone.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. I think that makes that social aspect a lot more accessible.
Yeah.
One of the more like enriching and fun parts about the game itself.
Yeah. And then one more feature I was thinking about was something that helps me manage my storage. A lot of the game is picking up resources when you're out, and then when I get home, I usually have to dump them all into my storage. And that's something that I would actually love to be able to do when I'm offline. So if I'm out and about, probably crazy idea, but if I could like empty my pockets while I'm like doing some other stuff on my phone, so then when I come back, the game is ready to play.
I think this is a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm really curious. I know we have a number of Animal Crossing fans in chat. So we've got Val, Kathleen, Nicolette, Lori's here, Perry,
Yay.
Christelle, Andreas, Jack. If anyone else has other ideas, feel free to share them as we go, and I'll try my best to keep track of them.
Awesome. Thank you. And I would totally, if there's any Animal Crossing features that you're just like, oh, this is a pain, I'd love to like think it through this, definitely let us know in chat, because I'd be happy to kind of play around with walk through some other ideas.
Cool. All right, I'll keep my eye out for those.
Sweet.
Hello and welcome from Manchester. I am currently in Ohio, and Noelle is all the way on the other side of the United States.
Nice. In Los Angeles.
Hi, Anya. Welcome.
Welcome. Hey, folks. Thank you for joining.
I'm getting down a notepad so I can make note of ideas as people share them. That's what
awesome.
I'm doing over here.
Thank you so much. So starting out, I'm going to share a couple design resources. So when I start thinking about designing a mobile application, the first thing that I usually reach to is some of the community-made resources that are already out there. And I shared a link which we can drop in chat. It's super, super important, especially in mobile, to get familiar with both the Apple design guidelines and the Android design guidelines, material design. So when you start with mobile applications, it's really important to remember that you're living in another library ecosystem that Apple or Google has created. So the more that you can stick to platform conventions, the kind of better you're going to have actually building the app with developers. So both Apple and Google have created really good guidelines for all of the components inside of mobile and like best practices. So I highly recommend like any designer interested in working on mobile, take a read through these docs. They can be a little bit boring, but they're generally pretty good and pretty comprehensive.
I wonder if Apple on that site there they had their like layouts, and it looks sort of like blueprints.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of how I think of it sometimes in my head. It's like these are kind of the blueprints of, you know, the expectations of the UI itself or the UX. So I think that's, I don't know, kind of cool that they did that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important to kind of stick with those platform conventions. You can throw all this out the window and do whatever you want, but you run the risk of it taking a really long time to build, and Apple rejecting you when you submit to the App Store.
Has that ever happened to you before? Or are you usually pretty, oh yeah, that's gotta be really tough, right? Do you have to go back to the drawing board, or what's the process?
Usually it's kind of a small thing. So usually when we submit to the App Store, sometimes Apple and Google will come back with like, hey, we would like it so that this tab bar scrolls away when you scroll the page down. And sometimes that's a product choice that we've made, that we've decided like, no, we'd rather have it show up all the time. So we kind of have to debate with them about it. And other times, usually suggestions are like, okay, that's a great suggestion. Then we quickly find a developer to help us fix it, and then go back and submit the app again to the App Store.
Wow. That's cool. I didn't realize it was, I mean, I'm not a UI UX designer by trade. I didn't realize it was actually such an involved process. Like from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, well, if you want an app on the App Store, just build it. And then, you know, like some machine will approve it. It's kind of sort of how you think of it in your head, which may not be the case.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the like really interesting things about doing mobile app design that like when folks move over from other platforms, they may not know, is just that like there is sometimes another human on the end double checking your work, and they can be sometimes particular about that.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm glad that it's that way. Like it makes sense, but it almost feels like there are so many apps out there in the world. How is that possible? But
no, I have a lot of empathy for those teams.
yeah, that's really hard.
So I started off, and I think I sent links if you can drop those in the chat for folks.
Val shared the links to Apple Design and Materials Design in the chat, so feel free to click on those and follow along if you would like.
Sweet. Thank you. The both Apple and Google are also amazing because they've created XD files with all of the iOS and Android components already built inside of it. Cool. So that's one thing that I love as a UX designer working in mobile is an amazing person somewhere out there has done a lot of the heavy lifting to make these components work.
That has to be a lot of work, I would imagine.
I can't imagine.
And then like once you publish it, it's out there. And I mean, you would have to spend so long checking it for mistakes, because if people use this as their baseline, it could impact everything subsequent.
Yeah, it's huge. So like, massive shout out to the designers that build this. You can tell this file is huge.
Come on, you got this. We got to cheer it on sometimes.
Yeah, this is the iOS one. I believe in you. Come on.
You're my best friend.
There we go.
Nice. Awesome.
Sweet. Yeah, and you can see that like these are great because it lists kind of recommended screen sizes to start out, and they've gone through and they've built out all of the user interface inside of mobile. So especially if you're starting out too, or even if you're a developer and you're not a designer, if you just stick to the rules that both Apple and Google have provided, you can actually make a pretty decent mobile app that looks not too bad, just by kind of grabbing components. I'm
ready to build one right now. Look at all these. It's like almost like you're looking at a bunch of Legos and you're just ready to go for it. That's how I feel right now. I'm curious, Noelle, are all of those like buttons and toggles and things, are those already turned into components? Like, could you...
Let's take a look.
Use them that way?
Yeah, they are.
Wow, that's really cool.
And it looks like they've got a couple different styles here. Let me zoom in on one. Yeah, it looks like it's built out with components. And you have the option to like turn it from 3 to 4 to 5 tabs. Oh, that's
Wow.
fabulous.
I think that makes it even more impressive, right? Because each
Yeah.
one has to be built a different way. It's not just like a bunch of loose assets. Wow.
I'm gonna squish this over on my screen.
We got some folks in chat cheering on XD too.
Yay!
It must have worked because we're in there.
Sweet. Right, so I'm gonna start over here. And option number 1 is picking a couple artboards to start with. So I'm gonna triple check just for my ease. Let's see. The width is 375. So the iPhone templates are going with 375, which is the size of an iPhone 6, 7, 8 SE. So that's for the little iPhone.
Okay, cool.
And
Is
then...
Maybe not.
Oh, go
Maybe
ahead.
not that size. I'm wondering if mine's the one we're designing for. Probably not. I think I have the 12.
Yeah, that or one of the little ones.
Nice. There it is. Yeah, mine has the notch on it. The dreaded notch to some.
Ah. Yeah, it's funny. When the notch first came out, people were kind of freaking out quite a bit, but the design, like, I haven't really been bothered by it.
Yeah,
like
doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it hasn't came up in any of my design stuff. And let's see. Android's at 360. So we will pick up, it looks like the Samsung Galaxy is that right width.
Do you typically design like Android and iOS like simultaneously when you go through this?
It really depends on like the team that I'm working with and the products that I'm working on. I've had previous teams where I had like 2 separate development teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd do kind of iOS and Android at the same time. Other times the teams have been slightly split so that I maybe would do all of the designing on an iPhone. And then once we validated, like, yes, that's the direction we want to go, then translate over to Android.
Okay.
And other places, I was just solely Android. So that's all we did. Which I'll see today. I might pick one of the platforms and we can just design one of those today and then come back and maybe do some iOS stuff.
Cool. That sounds great. Do you have more experience designing for Android than iOS, like over your career?
Oh, that's a really good question. For the longest time, I was at more iOS. But a couple years ago, I did spend some time working at ZipRecruiter, where for like 2 years, my job was just Android. And for us at Riot, Android's also our dominant. Like a lot of gamers end up more so leaning into Android. So I actually at this point feel more comfortable with Android than iOS.
That's really cool. I feel like a lot of the designers I just know personally seem to lean towards iOS. Like, I don't know, maybe just because it's like sleeker. I don't know. There's like a sort of like there's a thing there.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, when you're designing for it. But I mean, like a majority of the devices in the world are Androids, right? Like a large majority of them. So
yeah.
That's really cool.
The majority worldwide. So especially if you're working with a worldwide audience, it's really important. Yeah, I thought it was super unique that I got to work that job that was like solely focused on Android for a couple of years, which is why I like jumped on the chance. Because like, I mean, prior to that, I was an iPhone user. I had never had an Android phone. And as part of that job, I actually got an Android phone for my own personal device.
Cool.
Went to the dark side.
And have you stayed? Are you still Android?
I did, yeah,
nice.
Actually.
Cool.
So I'm still on my Google Pixel. I love it. I think it's fabulous. I know some people will like table flip and cry about like, oh no, Android's the worst.
I want to know in chat for people watching, are you an Android user or an iOS user? We'll do an informal survey and see if we're reflective of the global trend.
See how that pans out.
Yeah, I'm curious.
It's always a fun debate too, especially when you work on a team with like mobile or Android and iOS developers too, like watching debates pop up between like what platform's better.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that happens all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, I will stop distracting you so you can do your thing. We do have a lot of responses, a lot of iOS so far.
Nice. I might cheat right now and let's do Android, just because I feel a little bit more comfortable in that. And the first thing I'm going to do is actually grab, I'll hide you, my Android sticker sheet. I always try to set up kind of the top and the bottom of the screen with the system level controls. So there's actually a nice system bar inside of here that I will just steal.
Cool. No, it's just a straight copy and paste.
Yeah. So
Nice.
I just copy pasted. Android also has a software navigation bar. So for iOS users, this bar doesn't exist at all, but it's good on Android to put it in to make sure that you know the amount of screen real estate you're losing.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. We have overwhelmingly like a much larger portion of iOS in the chat. We had, I think, like 3 or 4 Android, and then everyone else was iOS.
Nice.
But C King says Androids are for free thinkers. Can you confirm or deny?
I like to say that Android is a series of compromises. It used to be that so there's thousands upon thousands of Android phones at multiple different screen sizes. There are like a few that stand out in the market, but when you work on Android, you have to account for all of those different devices, which coming from iOS sometimes can be kind of daunting because you can't really focus on the pixel perfect designs. But now there are so many versions of iPhone, a lot is actually like they're getting a lot of different designs as well too. So it may not be as bad as Android, but that problem is like getting a little close.
Consistent at least.
And that's actually probably a good segue into, so in mobile, there are multiple screen densities that you can design for. So on iOS, it'll be at 1x, 2x, which is like your Retina, 3x. There might be a 4 now too. So the higher end your phone is usually means that the density of those pixels on your phone device is actually like double or triple some of the older phones. And then on Android, there's low, medium, high, large, and then I think like extra, extra large density. So like a similar screen scaling.
Right.
Because of that, there's always a debate every time a new phone comes out, like what size should I build my design comps to? And thankfully, tools like XD have really great export tools that do that scaling for us.
Oh, cool.
So my recommendation is always to start at 1x. Start at the base size, and even better if you can work on a phone that's not like the new greatest, like something that's a little middle of the road. Because if you're working on one of the really big, beautiful screens, and then when you transfer to like a little tiny phone, you realize like most of your UI is not actually shown on screen.
Right.
So it's good to like try to get the smaller screen.
Designed for like the least real estate, least capable screen, and then scale it from there. Yeah. That's really interesting though. It's something you don't think about as like a phone user, like an everyday phone user, is how like that pixel density is even a thing. Like it's not something I think about very often. But it's really important for designers to know about all those different levels.
Yeah, hugely. Cool. And like you could probably get by with it until you start exporting and working with your developers. And like, especially with icons, like you can see that something's not right. So like working with scalable assets and that density is super important.
Cool. I sometimes will see folks with projects like on Behance or other platforms that are like very conceptual. Like I can tell they were like, I'm just going to take this idea and then make it happen. But sometimes when that happens, you're like, oh, wait, they designed something that's actually not possible. Or like they didn't factor in all these things that you're talking about right now. Are you like, I'm just curious from your perspective as someone that's in the industry and has been around for a while, would you advocate for someone to be like maybe less out there and like more in line with like what can actually happen? Or do you think it's okay to kind of like push the bounds?
That's a really good question. Because generally I would recommend like, yes, please stick to platform conventions. Particularly if it's going to be something real that will ship. So like when you check out a lot of the inspiration online, a lot of that is just like a design exercise. So I do see that a lot where it's like, oh, that's not, a developer's not going to agree to build that.
Yeah.
But at the same time too, I think it's also important as a designer to not like to have a little bit of room to play and to push some boundaries, because that's where we find really awesome innovative stuff. So one of the things that I try to do when I'm like working on projects is I'll do like one version that's the like, okay, this is the quick and dirty. This will look like developers are going to say yes to this, no problems. And then also do the crazy idea. So do something a little bit fancier, because you never know. They may come back and be like, oh yeah, we could do that. And
cool.
Then you've got an awesome, really cool thing.
But you want to at least make sure that people know that you know your stuff, kind of. You know, like it's one of those things where it's like you can only break the rules if you know the rules.
Exactly.
And you have to show people you know the rules. I think,
yeah.
That's probably a good approach to take.
Yeah.
Cool.
No,
Thanks for answering that. I know that was like a random question, but I think that'll be helpful for a lot of the folks watching, because at least for myself, and I think some of the people in chat, like we're self-taught and we're trying to learn this thing on the fly, and I've never had a professional UI UX job. So
no, and it's no, that's a great question. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna let's see. I grabbed a toolbar because I figured, oh no, that killed the background on that. I'll probably want a toolbar at a certain point. And then let's move you to the front. And I might grab another app bar.
At this point, do you just know your way around this document because you've used it a lot in your designs?
I haven't used this one in particular, but Google has made this across kind of their website and multiple platforms. So I'm pretty familiar with the way they have this set up. Sometimes I'll notice, like, especially if I'm working in wireframes, like sometimes they'll combine components in a little bit of a weird way. So like for this one, it's got the status bar with the title bar inside of here.
Right.
And I just want to know how tall this is. So there really is no shame in sometimes just measuring that. Let's see.
Cool.
56. Cool. So I'm just going to make a 56 tall app bar here. We'll make it a gray color for now. And make sure
I think that's a great tip.
Yeah.
Sometimes just make something new.
Yeah. Sometimes these components are set up really nice in ways that are helpful. Sometimes they're really, really convoluted and kind of annoying. So especially if it's just wireframes that I'm working on, sometimes I'll like break apart their components and just make it into like smaller accessible chunks.
That's really cool. So would you describe what you're building right now as more like a wireframe?
Yeah, I prefer to start with a wireframe initially. It's a really good way. So depending on what type of designer you are and whether your job is to kind of do full stack design or just the UX, starting with wireframes is a really great idea to kind of get some of the concepts out there and the like high level flows without having folks focus on what's actually on screen and the pretty things, because we're humans. The minute you show something with some color, people are going to be like immediately talking about kind of UI design versus UX.
Right.
So doing little wireframes like this is actually a good way to kind of focus their attention on the things you want them to pay attention to.
Cool. Yeah, I think this is a really, really great place to start. We got someone new in chat. Aurelia, thanks for joining us. It's nice to see you. I see lots of familiar names. I'm often hanging out in the live chat, so it's nice to be able to say hi with my voice.
Awesome. And welcome. Thank you for joining. Like one last note before I hop into some of the design too. So when I start designing products, especially at work, the process usually starts when I'm collaborating with other product designers, my product owner, and our technical folks. So usually I'm brought a problem to solve or a goal to meet, and then start doing kind of some discovery, some user research, and competitive analysis, and just dig into the problem a little bit more. And it's only after that I'll actually start coming to screen and do some designs. So this skips some of those steps since this is a bit more of a concept.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm curious, just personally, maybe there's other people in chat wondering, what's the difference between a product owner and a product designer?
Oh. So a product owner is mostly focused on the business and business outcomes. So they're kind of hybrid project managers, but also in charge of like the business case and making sure that we're meeting whatever goals that are outlined. Product designer is kind of the more recent, latest, and greatest term for like a full stack designer.
Okay.
So usually it's someone who is like hired on a startup. They're probably like the only person on the team, or in a very small team of designers, and they own everything. So they own UX, research, user interface design, and then also a bit more of they're expected to know a little bit more about the business, and also be able to meet those business goals. So whereas when like if I'm just a UX designer with my UX design hat on, like my primary focus is just making the best experience for our users. As a product designer, I also put on another hat of like, okay, how can we both meet business goals and make a good experience for users?
Cool. Thanks for explaining that. I think
Yeah.
it might be helpful for folks that haven't, been in the field yet. So
Yeah. No, it's kind of a new title emerging out. Yeah, and probably the one that like describes a bit what I do the most.
cool. Okay, I'll let you dig into this.
Let's see. All right. So I think problem number one that I'm going to go back to is my fossil problem. So I'm going to just copy this and bring it over to my artboard. And I usually just add text like this to kind of remind me wherever I'm designing. Because sometimes it's a little easy to get stuck in your head and forget. So I'm just going to add goals here.
Get your little sticky note going on.
Yeah. I'll just leave the iPhone over here. Sorry, iPhone.
Sorry, not sorry.
We're not ignoring you just yet. Let's see.
We'll get back to it.
So this is kind of interesting because so I haven't spent any time really thinking about what this app is going to be from a high level. So usually I would have done something like doing information architecture diagrams and like defining the main goal of the app. But I think for now we're just going to focus on kind of jumping into one of the features.
Cool.
So I think I'll delete the tab bar for now. And then I actually am going to steal some assets Martha Stewart style.
Nice.
So when I did a little bit of research, and there's an amazing website called Nokipedia.
The best.
It's so good. It actually lists out all of the fossils, not only in the new version of Animal Crossing, but also in the previous versions.
Wow.
And it also gives you an idea of how much they sell for too, which is great.
That's incredible. I use this. So my big thing in Animal Crossing is I like to catch all the fish. I'm trying to catch all the fish. And I use this to know which fish are in season. And it's so handy.
Nice. That's great. I suck at fishing.
Well, we should combine our powers. You can be the fossil. You'll have the fossil museum, and then I'll have the fishing museum.
Hopefully.
And with our powers combined.
So I'm going to look really quick here. So there, data-wise, there's a name, colors, size, and then also your sell price. So price, and then Yeah. And there's also the name of the dinosaur itself. Fossil name. So this just gives me an idea of some of the data that I can display here. So I'm just going to start playing around. Let's just make some table cells.
Cool. While you're making the cells, Jack is wondering if you have a system for picking font sizes when you're working on mobile.
Oh, yes. If it doesn't involve, slightly cheating. I do sometimes work with UI designers that have systems built out. So right now that answer is someone else has figured it out for me. I generally like to stick to the breakpoints that Google and Apple have provided, which here's a good view. So for Roboto, they have a headline, a title, subheader, body, etc. So when I'm working on a mobile application for a client, we generally will use this same structure, but if they want to use a different font, put our new font inside of here and then have these generally match.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's really helpful to have that there just in general. Because I would not want to have to guess at the different font weights and sizes that would correspond to all of those different use cases.
Speaking of which, that's a good idea. I'm going to steal these over to here. Bring them
over. Sam Peterson is in the house. Welcome, Sam. Good to see you. And then we also have Bernadette Leslie. Thanks for joining us, Bernadette. Welcome. Let us know if you have any questions. And if you need caught up to speed, just let us know. There's a live chat. Ask away. I'll make sure they get delivered too. Throughout the live stream, but we are a little bit I've been asking a lot of questions, so I want to make sure that Noelle has plenty of time to design.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see, so starting out, I'm just going to make a table cell and we're doing a wireframe, so these will look kind of bad, but it should be all right. And this will be interesting. So I almost want to make like a multi-component. So I picked up a couple off the Wikipedia. So I know this has 3 sections, but some only have 2, and some might actually be 1. So I'm going to start off and make a component for this table cell. So fossil name.
Looks like we've got John in the chat from the Netherlands. Thanks for joining us. And Gina has an idea for the app.
Ooh,
I'll tell it to you when you're ready. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so her idea is, what if we had the ability to access the Nook stop from the app instead of constantly running to resident services? Which I think is a great idea because that's a kind of a time sink to do that every time you want to go to the Nook stop.
Yeah, hugely. And maybe Animal Crossing pro tip, once you spend a certain amount of money, which I think it might be like 200,000 bells, they actually unlock that. So after you, I'm not sure, somewhere on the internet probably is good info on it, but like after you meet a certain threshold, you can get an app installed on your Nook phone. So in game, even when the store's closed, you can run around and buy stuff.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
So Gina, there you go. There's actually a solve for it, but we'll visit that if we have time. Yeah. Thanks for the suggestion.
Totally down to play around with that.
Hi, Laura. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you. So right now we're building out wireframes for a companion app for Animal Crossing. So if you're into video games, Animal Crossing, or you're just curious how Noelle approaches app design, this is a good stream to tune into. There'll be plenty of pro tips. So ask any questions you might have as we're going along.
Let's see. When I design on mobile as well too, usually I try, Android is built in multiples of 8. So I try generally to make most of the components that I work with those same multiples.
Cool.
I have had friends on iOS use multiples of 5 just to make the math easier. So you can kind of use your own pixel rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
But that's usually where when I'm like thinking about like, oh, what size should this be? Playing around with that.
Cool. I've noticed whenever I try to stick to like 5 versus 8 or whatever, you can just do the math in the cell. Like you could do like 8 times 5, and then it will do it for you, which is really useful. So
it's so nice.
I don't know if everyone here knows that, but you should check it out if you haven't done that yet.
So I'm just gonna throw some info in here. And so I'm interested personally. I don't ever use this size inside of Animal Crossing. I've never ran into a point where I need that.
Yeah.
So I might not put size on these designs, but there's probably a really good reason for that. So we'll see. That might be a bad choice.
I think, at least my opinion, so I have some on my island, some fossils just like hanging out in the wild. Like I've made a display outside of the museum. And that's the only case where it's important, because otherwise like I might not be able to measure correctly and the fossils might overhang like a path or something.
Oh, that's really good to know, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you just give them to the museum, then it doesn't matter because they set them up for you.
Okay. And I just like brute force throw it out and play YOLO depending on where it lands, and then wait again. So, and actually, I'm going to steal this to drop in a couple sizes to have a match mostly. I don't have a whole design typography system set up. So for this round, I'm gonna just do it by hand. So I probably want, this is more of a like, it's a little bit more of a subheader. So I'm gonna make you 16 and regular. And then I'll...
Is there a way in XD, and I don't know the answer to this, but is there a way to just like copy and paste the appearance? Like could you copy appearance from subheader and then just see what happens?
Yeah, let's see. So I will copy it, copy here, and then I want these 4 to look like that. Paste appearance.
Nice. Ooh. Oh, but it's, yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah, we'll make it readable. Then I'll probably make those a little bit lighter. That is great. To make things easier on myself, I'm gonna copy that appearance. And grab at least the shades of gray that I'm working with.
Cool. And this way you could use the eyedropper if you need to.
Yeah.
Nice.
That way I'm not making a ton of different grays. Oh, that one's pretty close. Let's maybe change you a little bit.
It's cool what you're creating right now. Seems to me, you know, sometimes when you're looking at projects on Behance or Dribble or other platforms, at the top they have like their colors and their fonts and the sizes and which one. You're basically building that right now. So if you wanted to turn this into a project, you kind of have those already prepared, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, this is like, this could be a little like ad hoc design system. I generally love starting with design systems. I like to be a lazy designer. I'd rather set something up once and copy it to multiple places. It just saves so much time in your workflow.
Yeah. Some say lazy, others say efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like efficient better. Yeah. So let's see. I think this is good for now for this. So I've got a table header here and a table cell here. And I'm going to group these together. I'm not sure how I'm going to do the header just yet.
For folks watching, what's the shortcut for grouping? Is it Shift G? I think you just did it out of muscle memory.
Yeah, Command G.
Okay, cool. Nice. Command G.
So I'm going to turn this item, let's see, table row.
We have cheers to a design system in chat. And also, Chelsea Case loves this idea and ran into that exact problem where Chelsea had collected all of the fossils but had not realized it yet.
Yeah, I have 2 left. And I've had 2 left for 6 months. And every time I go like to turn them into blathers, I'm disappointed because he won't take anything. And I'm just like, where are those like last 2?
One day.
So I've stopped like giving him fossils because I'm just like, whatever, I'm gonna do other stuff. Like
That's really funny. I think we're about in the same. So I have an island with my wife Kathleen, and we have, I think maybe 1 or 2 missing, but we've sort of just given up.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, like at this point, I'm like, okay, when they show up, they show up. But I'm also not going to go out of my way to try to find them. That, or I was literally debating just going to a third-party site and saying, like, can I buy it off of somebody?
I love it. You totally should. Okay, so Chelsea has an idea. What if we add a directory for all the artwork we buy from Red?
Ooh.
She doesn't believe there's a way to track that artwork, which I don't think there is either, but you might know otherwise.
I don't think so either, actually.
Yeah. Val says, when Blathers won't take my fossils, I give him bugs. So cruel.
That's great. I love it.
I love that. Oh.
So I will say I spend a lot of time making tables in mobile applications. I'm gonna grab this little up button. So just from my experience, I know that likely this page would probably be like 2 layers down in the information architecture. Oh, why are you locked there? And why are you locked? Come on.
They just need a little of that classic XD encouragement.
Yeah.
Bernadette has a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have to know coding as a UX designer? And if so, what do you recommend learning, Android or iOS?
Ooh. No, you don't. But I definitely recommend having a little bit of an understanding of the platforms that you're working for. A lot of what I've learned has literally just been spending time with developers, asking them to explain to me like the constraints that they work within. So it's like not required. You get extra bonus points if you do learn a little bit about coding and the way that stuff is structured. I've heard Swift is pretty approachable, and there are some online courses that you can take. But then I also think Google has some Android courses that up on like Udemy or one of the platforms as well too that you can go through. I don't do any development myself. I tried learning Swift for a little bit and it just reminded me why I'm not a developer.
Yeah, you either love it or you hate it, it seems.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of middle ground there.
Yeah. So like if you're the type of person that loves learning stuff like that, like heck yeah, do it. But you don't need to be able to like build your own app. One of the nice things if you do learn a little bit of Swift is you can sometimes use Xcode, which is the program that iOS mobile applications are built in. It has a prototyping flow that you can actually drag and drop real mobile app components and make a prototype that runs inside of Xcode.
Cool.
That you can then publish onto your phone like a real actual app. So total extra gravy, but if you want to get familiar and play around with it as like a UX designer.
Cool. I think that's a really great tip. This was a while ago, but I remember talking to, there's a designer we've done some work with, or I've worked with several times. His name's Jesse Showalter, and he knows how to code and design. And I recall him saying basically like, you don't have to be a designer, but it does add a lot of value. So if like you said, if you're interested in it, spend the time to learn at least the basics, so you kind of know your way around. But if it's really not your thing, you'll still be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uriel, let me know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Welcome to the show. Let us know if you have any questions. Sorry. The
No
floor
worries.
is yours.
Yeah, and what I'm doing right now is just double checking what the margins are that Google has set up. So looks like
Cool.
they've got 16, and then I'm curious how far, I want to see how far, that is 72 away. When working on mobile designs, there are some of these components, especially in these top bars and like system level controls that are like, there's not a lot you can do to change these. So they're kind of baked, and it takes a bit more time for mobile developers to move anything. So I like to try to make this match as much as possible. So
Cool.
I've got 16, and that one needs to go up to 72.
When you're clicking on the asset there, are you which key are you holding to see the distance between that and like the border, for example?
I'm holding down Alt right now.
Cool. Okay, awesome.
And then there are some really awesome, live guidelines sometimes that ends up showing up too when you just drag it around.
Yeah, I find those super helpful, especially if you have multiple instances of a similar thing. It like picks up that, oh, those two are 30 apart, so the third should also be 30 apart. I'll kind of snap it into place, which makes it much quicker.
Absolutely. Theoretically, you don't have to make your wireframes pixel perfect, but I like to build them generally to the size so that you've got a good idea. So it's usually the big kind of top and bottom components for me that I'll make sure are within that same size.
Cool.
And then once we get into like doing little things like actually playing around with table cells, then you can experiment a little bit more. So I've got this row, and I'm going to turn this into a component.
Nice.
Just to make our lives a lot easier. And I love components.
Yeah, they can be a lifesaver for sure.
I might leave my base one over here. So this is my root component. And so I'm going to drop that, and let's bring in the table header.
So for that root component, if you were to edit the root one, would it edit all the subsequent components? Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Cool.
And so the reason for that is, how do I okay. So up here, I could do this, is one of my favorite tools in XD, which is the repeat grid.
Our good friend.
So awesome. So with this, if you turn that on for your component, I can then increase the size of the table view cell scroll view, and it will just copy the components over for me. And it's so good.
Wow. That is incredibly easy.
Yeah.
And all you literally did was just drag that handle and turn it before turning or after turning it on. That's awesome.
I'm going to adjust the margins a little bit, bring this up to like 8.
Cool.
And I just hovered in between and grabbed that and moved it upwards. And then it's inside of this one that I'll use this to start dropping some stuff. So I'll bring, I have a little folder of images here, and I think this will work. So also super awesome. Once you have that component set up with this repeat grid, I can actually just come into here. Let's see, we'll start with, oh, it's actually right here. So here's my ankelo here and here. And I'm gonna cheat really quick because I'm not sure how to do this, but someone might be able to show me really quick. So let's see, I'm gonna make this a component and then draw an instance over here. And let's make this page really big.
Nice. Now we're getting into the good stuff.
Yeah.
We have a question. I'll ask it to you once you've finished with this, but it's about dev work again and about how to hand off assets to developers.
Absolutely. So you can see this will be like fossil number 1, and then I'll pull a number 2.
Cool.
Yeah, what's the question?
Yeah, so it's from S. Kanumili. Apologies if I messed up your name a little bit. But the question was basically, what questions will developers ask you after you hand it off? So like, let's say you've created something, you hand it off. What can you expect developers to come back with, in terms of questions or extra follow-ups?
Tons and tons of questions. um, it I was gonna say it really depends. So uh, sometimes questions come back, like if we've made some crazy design flow and the developers are like, "Hey, I don't know if I can build that." Or you can imagine Android. There's a lot of stuff that actually isn't that like you do use on your phone, but that third parties have created, and they've spent lots of time building those features, so it's not stock.
Mm.
So sometimes developers will come back and be like, hey, I don't know if we can do this, or we might have to do this instead. If I'm working on primarily UI stuff, it kind of depends on the developer and how much their visual eye is exercised. So some developers are phenomenal, and you can give them a design comp and they will give you back pixel perfect designs that look exactly like it. Those people are rock stars and they're amazing.
They're hard to find.
Yeah. Once you find one, hold on to them. So other times too, it's usually kind of working with the developers to like pull up a design in Xcode or an Android Studio, and then like look at that right next to your designs in like XD and compare like, okay, do the fonts match? Do the colors match? Designers love to use a lot of shades of gray, and sometimes it's hard, especially on different monitors, for developers to see that there is a difference there. So usually it's a lot of that QA work of like, okay, is the also assets? It's always a pain, but like making sure visually does it match what's in the design. And also, since when you're working in code, you can actually start seeing some of the real copy dropped in there. They might find spots where like your table cell or like the text that you have isn't big enough. So I recommend when working for mobile to try to make your text boxes span as far as you can get.
Okay.
And this is especially important if you're localizing as well too. So I think, let's see. Okay. We'll do 10 there. And I don't know if I like the 13, but I won't worry about that now. But that
Sometimes you need an unlucky number somewhere.
Yeah.
Hey, Fergie, welcome to the party. We're really happy you joined. Fergie's an Animal Crossing fan. So if you have any questions, let us know if you have them, and I'll make sure Noelle gets them. We had a suggestion too from Roy. He said that it might be a good idea to keep the Android UI at the same place it was on the artboard. And I don't know, but I think maybe he's indicating that on that artboard, since it's extended for like a scroll. If the Android UI stays in the same place, then it would be the length of the screen always as you're scrolling through the different fossil names. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I'm interested actually because XD has this little marker here, which I think this leans into some of the prototyping.
Yeah. So that indicates where the screen would start scrolling.
Yeah.
So that should be the length of the Android screen
at
the onset.
Let's see, what does this let us do anything?
Yeah, I think if you click on that and then hit play, you should be able to scroll it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this kind of gives you an idea of like where that breakpoint is. And I might actually move that up a little bit. So it's a little bit closer to most screens. So maybe tomorrow I'll mess around with the prototyping a little bit more. But this is nice because this allows you to see a bit of both of like what is going to get cut off while also seeing in a long scroll.
Yep.
That's a good suggestion though. When I'm working on delivery files, often what we'll do is we'll have one that's like a long scroll and another that's a shorter one.
Cool.
So I'm gonna move you up here.
Nice. And obviously you designed the way that you want, but I thought that was actually an interesting idea.
Yeah, no, it's a good call out to like mention because it helps you keep an idea of like what folks are actually going to see on screen.
Yeah, totally. Hey, Anime Elephant. Hey, Henry. Looks like we've got some new folks in chat. Thanks for joining us. We're really happy to see you.
Welcome.
Noelle is designing a companion app for Animal Crossing. We're trying to solve some pain points in the video game right now. She's building out some screens where you can look at the different fossils that you've collected on your island.
Let's see, borrow these guys over here. Short example. And as much of a pain as it is, it's really important to name your layers. Particularly, I think in most of the prototyping tools. A long scroll. Because there are some awesome auto magic animation things that as long as your layers are named correctly, you should be good. But if you run into any kind of funky problems, that's like one of the first things to check out.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, it's a layer naming thing. But auto animate is very cool, so hopefully we get some time to play with that. Hey, Darren, welcome. It's nice to see you. You might have caught what I was saying just now, but we're making a companion app for Animal Crossing.
Pull that up. Title. So I brought these in earlier so that you guys don't have to watch me dig around the internet. Plesiosaur, and then I need to make this a little bit longer. First, I'm going to see if I can pin this to the bottom of the screen. Yes. So
Nice.
I'm going to keep it so my constraints are, it's a fixed height and it's pinned to the bottom and it spans the whole width of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that will make it easier to when I do this. Nope.
Mm.
What did I do wrong?
Let's see.
You do auto? Let's see. You now sticking there? Nope.
I think maybe were those responsive resize settings that you were playing with?
Those were.
So I think what that does is, so like if you go to resize that element, it'll constrain, like if you wanted to make it wider, for example, it won't make it any taller. But I think when we're dealing with scrolling on the artboard, scroll groups could be your friend here.
Yeah.
I'm not a pro with scroll groups, but
okay. I'll just
hey Evan, welcome.
for now.
There's good news if you're joining late. This is all recorded, and you can catch out the beginning of the stream after this. And we're also live tomorrow for another 2 hours. So you're not too late by any means. And if you have questions or need to get caught up, just ask them, and I'll make sure we get you caught up.
Yes, please. Totally. Yeah, happy to answer any questions. So I'm going to pull T-Rex into here. So this is me just setting up kind of the first version of this table. I've got about 4 different folks inside of here, and I'm dropping in some of these images that I actually have saved. So let's see, I need the Plesiosaurus. And these I downloaded off of Nookazon, which is Nokopedia, sorry. So I have these just kind of dropped.
I don't know if this works, but it might. I think if you highlight, like let's say you wanted those next 3 to be all T-Rex fossils, if you were in your Finder to just like highlight the 3 sequential T-Rex fossils and then drag that into the very first one, it might populate the following 3. Maybe not. I don't think that worked, did it?
I think that works if I do, let's try this out. And make a copy. 4, 5, 6. I highlight these, then grab these 6. Oh. I've had it work before.
Yeah, I think it's a repeat grid thing. So like if you create a repeat grid, so maybe if you delete those last ones and then repeat grid that and then do 6. I thought that this would work, but maybe not.
There we go.
There we go.
That's
okay.
it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Does work.
Okay. It might be because I've got the headers in there.
Yeah, maybe.
And that might be the thing that's making it a little funky because I have that as one component and then another component. Mostly just because I'm not sure how to do a dynamic number.
Right. But, you know, pro tip for anyone watching, if you're using repeat grids, you could do that with images or like text files, or if you have a Google Sheet, and it can save you a lot of time.
It's super fabulous. So just at a high level, what I'm going to do for... So here's my like super boring version number 1, is I'm going to make it so that there are 2 icons here that are used in Animal Crossing that I stole these somewhere off the internet. This is what it looks like when you dig it up out of the ground and you don't know what the fossil is. And then you actually have to take the fossil to the museum to be identified before you know what fossil you got. And then once it is identified, then it turns into this little fossil icon. So as a small little thing to try out for my problem, what I'm going to do is just toss a couple examples of like what it would look like.
Nice.
So in this list, kind of the feature to work on is that so as I'm looking at this and I'm scrolling, I can see which items I need that are actually that I haven't found just yet, and only reveal the ones that I have found.
That's a really great idea.
Yeah, I'm gonna borrow some copy here. So we've got a skull, tail, and torso.
This is the fun part where we try to pronounce all of these fossil names.
And you
the
can
scientific names.
You can totally see me ignoring.
Oh yeah. And this is a torso of a Ankylosaurus magniventris.
Ankylosaurus? Yeah. We'll do saber-toothed tiger is an easy one.
I have a niece who is very into dinosaurs, and she knows a bunch of complex names, and it impresses me every time she tells me about dinosaurs.
That's awesome.
That's pretty
great.
Cool.
This one, I'm doing something weird because I wanted to show what it could potentially look like if you don't have a consistent 3 pieces of data for each one of these. So even though the saber-toothed tiger does have 3 pieces, I'm just going to show 2.
Cool.
Just to give, so, and often when I'm designing, like it's really good to work inside your design comms, some examples of what it looks like when there's no data, when you have a lot of data, and or like what happens when the image is missing or doesn't load. So having kind of like those fallback use cases.
Yeah. And they're probably exceptionally useful for what we were talking about earlier. When you hand off or show it to someone else, you can say, oh, well, actually, I can show you what that looks like. I've designed it and it's right here. Hey, Brayden, welcome. We're really happy to have you.
I'm going to add one more to the plesiosaurus because he's actually got 4 pieces. And this is why repeat grids are amazing. Because instead of having to copy paste it, it's just in here. Let's get these guys back up.
Nice.
And we'll do neck. Go torso. Tail. And then really quick for T-Rex, skull, tail, and torso.
Nice. I have a T-Rex out in front of my house.
Nice.
Yep. It's pretty cool. I also have a collection of turtles. Turtles are like one of the few animals where, like the snapping turtle, where if you catch it, it just exists like on the ground and it isn't in like a tub or a tank or anything. So I've got a
great.
little snapping turtle army. It's pretty cool.
Nice. It's so like it's amazing to see all of the directions people that can go with the game. I set up a whole like Halloween land because I love Halloween and decided just to leave it the whole year. I'm just like this quarter of my
And you
island
have
is
to.
now spooky town.
It's Halloween Town.
Exactly.
That's great. So how did you accomplish that? What did you add to Halloween Town?
I Halloween was the one season that I actually had it open while I was at work, uh, running.
Nobody heard that.
Yeah.
No.
But I was listening for every time the balloons would come by and I'd hear that whooshing sound. So I'd
Yeah.
just plant my character out on one of the beaches and have them waiting, and then would sit there and would like shoot down stuff
Yes.
as it came down.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite parts about the game is the random gifts that just fly into your island.
Like sometimes like some of the stuff I feel like was super easy to get, and you could tell that they changed the game mechanic mid Halloween because the first like 3 days it was really easy and I got a lot of stuff, and then like after that it was like they cut it off and they were like, no, we're gonna make this harder for you now.
um so Karen has an idea about the navigation bar if we still want help, but I think you were right there with fixed position. If you fix position, it'll stay in its place at the bottom of the screen when you go. I think when you go into prototype and then you go to play it. I think that's when you see it. So I think you did the right thing there.
Yeah, I'd love to hear their idea. Let's see. Yep.
Voodoo Val has a fortune telling room in her house.
Ooh, oh, that must be really cool.
Yeah, you know it's got to be really cool, especially if you know Val. You know it's got to have purple everywhere.
And it's probably yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. You got it.
No worries. Yeah, I'll play around. Maybe I'll do some like prototyping stuff tomorrow. But this just kind of gives you an idea. It's like a quick and dirty feature. So like I can scroll through and I can at least see like, hey, for this, the skull, I need the skull for the saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah.
I need the torso for the plesiosaurus. And the T-Rex skull. So
Nice.
yeah.
Zeneb joined and says, I just arrived. What program is this?
Hey, we're working in Adobe XD. There has been, I don't know, Gus, if you want to give like a intro, or I could talk a little bit about what XD is.
Sure. I mean, I can do the quick and just really quick rundown, but it's essentially a design and prototyping tool that's basically created so that folks can design screens and experiences that they can then iterate and test on, so that they can, one day become an app or a website or, something that's actually out there in the wild. So that's the intention of the program. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add.
Yeah, their XD is a really great tool. Like years ago, before this tool was developed, designers would often use Photoshop and Illustrator to do their designs, which is fine, but Photoshop is massive and has so many features and is a little bit more geared towards photography. And same with Illustrator, it's super powerful, super wonderful, but more geared towards actually like creating and illustrating. So XD was made specifically for both working on screens and also prototyping. So that's one of the things that I love about it, is being able to, like, I can play this and I can see like, here's a preview of this on like an actual device. And maybe a bit tomorrow we can kind of connect it and walk through some of those, which gives you a little bit more of an idea of what it'll feel like on a real phone.
Yeah, I think that'll be really fun tomorrow. And for folks in chat, I think Bernadette has never seen XD before either. There's a starter version of XD, so you can download it and play around with it for free. Feel free to do that. Check it out, see if it's something that you could find useful. I really like it. It's pretty lightweight, like it's really fast and responsive, and it really hardly ever slows down. So I use it for all sorts of stuff that go beyond screen design. Mock-ups, and even I've made presentations in XD, used to auto animate and stuff to create transitions between slides. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I did that over here kind of with some of my intro slides. I just threw stuff in at I think it's like a 1920 by 1080 size. And Sometimes it's even a little bit nicer than working with things like Excel or slides, because you can, as a designer, can control everything about it, and then just export it as a PDF, and use that as your presentation.
Yep.
Oh, hey, the preview worked as well too.
Fun fact from Roy says even today, some places require you to design UIs in Photoshop, and that is correct. But you also can drag Photoshop files into XD and open them, so you sort of go back and forth, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, especially a lot of folks still doing like really pretty, like at Riot, a lot of our game art and like kind of the more high fidelity stuff, folks usually lean towards the more robust tools. So like I still have like colleagues that I work with that are still super in Photoshop, but for a lot of the like UX prototyping where it mostly just needs to be gray boxes, XD is definitely a lot more of a lightweight, better choice.
Right. Yep. It's really, in my opinion, it's really easy to pick up. I had no experience in an app like XD before using it, and I felt like within a couple, like not even an hour, I like kind of knew all of the stuff and could create things, which was pretty empowering from my perspective because I was sort of overwhelmed at the start.
Now I'm going to try something different and we will see how this goes. So I generally, when I'm working on a feature, I like to do kind of as many iterations as possible of different design types, so that I can play around with it, get it in front of other people, try different ideas. I'm going to see. Do you know if I can swap components?
I think so. But what do you mean by that? Maybe elaborate.
I want to make a brand new component.
Okay.
And I want to make these change to this one instead of this one.
Oh.
Which might be... I want to ungroup that component.
I guess you could, turn that into a second root component.
Let's change this really quick just to see. It'll be ugly. And then I'll make this a new component.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to name you...
This is one of those moments where I wish Howard Pensky was watching because I know he's done this before and knows exactly how to do it. But the information is beyond me. So let's just have fun trying to figure it out.
And let's see. So I don't know, so I might just do this for now. I might brute force it.
Yeah, I think that might be the play. I'll do some research and see if I can figure this out too.
Yeah, and I might need to check up on this. So what I want to do right now is I want to try to make a 2-column layout.
Okay.
So I know that my design is 360. So I'm going to take this component and just type in /2 to divide it in half. I love that you can do the math. It's so good.
It's awesome.
And then I probably want a 16 pixel gutter down the middle. So I'm going to pull another 8 off of it. And then I'm going to scoot these items down. And for this one, let's kill the labels.
Nice.
Let's just add these in.
I like it.
Yeah. And so I'm also going to zoom in really quick. Let's see. So 10. We'll make you 13. Make you 10 up on the top. And so then we'll make you 8.
I didn't mention this yet, but there are a lot of folks in chat that haven't used XD yet, and it's the perfect day to let you know. We actually have, right after the stream ends, we have something called the XD Daily Creative Challenge. And it's starting fresh again this week. So we had a live series over the last 2 weeks, and we're rebroadcasting that full series again over the next 2 weeks. so that you can catch up on them or catch any live streams you might have missed. So if you want to try the challenge, you can download the starter file, follow along with our host Brandon, and you basically by the end of 9 days should have a pretty good grasp of the basic functionality of XD. And you walk away with a bunch of really cool designs that you can put in a Behance project and show off so that people can see the progress that you made. So I highly recommend checking that out. It's right after we go offline today.
Awesome. So, oh wait, I'm doing this wrong. All right, I'm going to drop in my first component. And because I love repeat grids so much, I'm gonna turn that on. So that will allow me to do this.
Nice.
And this. Boop. There we go.
There was
then...
there was a boop.
Yeah.
Howard is known for his boops. It's like I dropped his name and then he just invaded our brains.
Nice. Boop. I totally like unconsciously like boop is part of my vocabulary now.
I love it.
Let's see. So I'm gonna match the gutters to 16 as well too. We'll just make it easy. And then we might change this later, but for now, I will leave that there. And then I'm gonna actually have everything hang like 1 pixel off the edge, so that you don't see the outline or the side of the box right here.
Cool.
And there's a little bit of that hanging off this side. And then, does this allow? Okay, yeah, probably not. So then I will take this chunk, copy and paste this down.
Nice.
So for the saber-toothed tiger, we're only going to have 2.
I think you found a really good process to do what you were trying to do.
Yeah.
While still saving some time. This is smart.
This is not too bad. Like it ends up, yeah, actually being pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna go back.
Moazim, thanks for joining us. Like I mentioned just a second ago, you should, right after we go offline, so in 30 minutes, there's going to be something called the XD Daily Creative Challenge. Stick around for that. And you'll have 9 projects over the course of the next 2 weeks to work on and work alongside Brandon as he completes them. And you probably will learn a lot along the way. So stick around for that.
Definitely recommend these tools. And my computer is also happy running a more lightweight piece of software too. Let's see. Please, yeah. So I'm going to drop. Right now, I'm just dragging and dropping from folder that I have these in. And then I think I'm gonna do this.
Nice. If you were a dinosaur, which dinosaur would you be?
Ooh. Oh, that's a really good question. Because like in my mind, my brain goes like, oh, T-Rex. But then the reality is I'd probably be some sort of like small, like furry creature.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's easier for someone to tell you which dinosaur they think you are.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's fun to dream about which one you'd be.
Yeah. There's the one that I think I am in my mind, and then the reality.
It's like your spirit animal. Yeah, I'm a wolf.
Yeah.
Or like, I'm a tiger. Everyone knows. And then they're like, no, actually, apparently my spirit animal is the raccoon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I guess I am, but I would rather be a tiger.
That's one thing I love in Animal Crossing. The shop owners are little raccoons, and like the sound inside the game is just amazing. And anything involving language, and so like when you're talking in the shop with the raccoons and selling stuff, they're like,
and it sort of sounds like what they're saying, which is weird.
Yeah. Like it almost sounds like real words. So you're just like, oh, I can almost get it. But I love it. And it's so cute.
It's a really nice touch. Have you seen the video of the band playing the Animal Crossing theme song? You should check it out. It's like the band that played that for the video game. And it's just really incredible. They're just great musicians.
Yeah.
So you can't, like, if you've played the game, that song just means so much. I feel like if you just hear it, it like immediately takes you to a place or on an island, or especially the last year, like if you've lived your life on Animal Crossing. It's pretty funny, pretty cool.
Yeah. I'll check that out afterwards.
I want to know from everyone in chat, what are your spirit dinosaurs or spirit animals? That's cool too.
So I'm gonna throw in. So right now, the like unpretty parts of UX design is sometimes you have to spend a lot of time filling in real data. I highly encourage everyone when you're designing to throw real data in there, because you could make the prettiest design ever, but may find out that like the pictures aren't large enough or the text isn't big enough. Especially if you're working on an internationally based mobile application. German and Brazilian, generally the translation ends up almost 2 to 3 times larger than what you would have in English. So you need to make sure that your components can handle that. That's why, like when I'm making these base components, I try to make sure that the text, even though the label is much shorter, that it spans the whole width of the screen, or the container it lives inside of, just to give you that extra room.
Yeah, and that's really, really good point.
Yeah, it's also helpful too, because when developers are taking a look at this, they'll see actually, I think, like the width, and they'll see that entire bounding box, so they know to make their components the same way.
Yeah, sort of like build it so you can try to break it. Yeah. And then wherever it's broken, you're going to have to redesign a little bit. Val says she would be one of those dinosaurs that has a special skull for bonking other dinosaurs. She calls it the bonk.
Love it.
I love it too.
All right, so I've done a couple different versions. One really good thing to do that I will admit I don't do as much as I should is sitting here and kind of like, once you've got a design, think about some of the pros and the cons between them and why you would recommend one over the other. So looking at the one on the left, I can see much larger images of the items. Much larger. Make this a little bit darker so folks can see.
Also, if you're watching, let us know in chat what you think the pros and cons are of each. Wonder if we come up with the same ones that you do.
Yeah, that would be great. And it's also super, super important to share your design work with other people and get feedback. It can be really easy to get siloed inside your head working on something. So often, even if it's just like a friend or like whoever you have nearby, showing them the work and getting their feedback early and often will like tremendously help your design process.
Yeah, it'll probably save you a lot of time too.
Yeah.
Which we know is precious for designers and developers.
Yeah. Long to scroll. So like, for example, this one's really long. It's hard to tell. You have to search to find the ones that are that you don't have available.
Yeah, I wonder if there were like a filter thing or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Idea. Create a filter.
So, S. Kenumili, the reason why Noelle leaves all of that room on the text boxes is so that it can accommodate even like longer strings of text than what she has as a placeholder right now. So she uses up all of the screen space that she can. Is that correct? Did I get it right?
Yeah, yeah, especially for supporting multiple languages.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, it's mostly localization. Because you could tell, even probably if I throw saber-toothed tiger in here, it does not fit.
Broken.
And this is where if I want to get super crazy on components, which I might look into a little bit tomorrow and come back and we can chat about that. You can build out components that will resize based on the content inside of them.
Yep.
But those are some kung fu skills above my experience level right now.
You can do it. I think it's mostly just all responsive resize.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll play around with that and see. Android is really great at out of the box supporting multiple or table cells. So on Android, if you do have text that has to go to 2 lines, it will push the size of the box larger.
Oh, cool.
It's extra code to do that on iOS, although I think they may have made it a little bit easier. But sometimes you might have to do a little bribing with your development team to get them to build those.
What's your favorite development team bribe?
Usually I'll make baked goods.
Ooh, nice.
And or whiskey's always a good thing too.
Those are about even in my mind. Yep.
Yeah.
Both are nice. Or you could send them some bells in Animal Crossing.
Yeah. I've played poker once before with like World of Warcraft gold.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
I would love to do that.
like play like any in-game currency that we can slide back and forth.
Yes. Oh, that's great. And Zeneb, right now, Noelle is designing an experience, a companion app for Animal Crossing. So if you're not familiar, it's a video game that was released by, is it Nintendo that owns Animal Crossing?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And so there are some pain points that she identified in the game, and she's building out some experiences to help solve those.
So really quick, just because it's easy, I'm going to create would be like the 3rd level page, like a fossil detail page. So let's see. Let's do this one. I'm gonna grab you so I spell this right. And I'm gonna grab this cell and drop it down here. I, of course, had to pick titles that were crazy.
You know, you got to try to break the system.
Yeah. So I'm going to ungroup this because I don't need it to be a component anymore. And because this is a detail page, I'm actually going to blow this up really big.
Cool.
Oh, well, we'll see how this turns out. So
you know,
depending,
there's something kind of like endearing about the super pixelated, like, it kind of reminds me of like N64.
Yeah, you could pretend that that was a happy accident and that happened on purpose. So grab this data. So theoretically, you'd be working probably with a development team that had access to higher quality versions of these pictures so that they would load a thumbnail and a full version. But since I stole these off the internet, we'll just go with this.
Borrowed.
So one thing that this would be that I would come into this page, and if I tap on this table cell, it would open up this detail page with a little bit more information. Thinking about it, I probably want... So there's a couple things that I've been thinking about. Part of the reason that I put this image in is so that you don't spoil the magic of finding out what that fossil is. I have a feeling probably for some players, like they want to experience finding it themselves and not have it spoiled. So I'd imagine that like you'd have kind of like multiple options.
Yep.
So what I'm wondering is, should I add in some maybe UI components inside of here that show maybe that you've found this, maybe when you found it.
Ooh, I like that. Everyone likes like a good progress indicator, you know?
Found it.
Maybe you could even put, you know, some of the information that was on Wikipedia that we decided to leave out. space or something. You know,
Yeah.
I can't remember what the other ones were, but since you're in a more detailed view.
Well, let's see. Add, make you kind of a rounded.
Also, just a quick time check for you. We're already about 15 minutes before the end of the stream, so just heads up on that.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I definitely, if folks have any more questions too, happy to talk through some stuff.
Cool. Yeah, let us know in the chat. So far, I'm seeing a lot of people that are watching really enjoying it and getting a lot of information out of this. So, thanks for being so thorough.
Thank you too. Thank you for joining. Hi, friends. Ooh, and actually probably found. So for now, I'm just gonna maybe make a component that's got 2 states. What would be the opposite of found? It's not missing, but you haven't dug it up yet.
Yeah. I think instead of, well, I was thinking maybe like locked or unlocked or something like that, or like identified and unidentified, or maybe like, because the opposite of found to me is like always lost. I don't know what else to use.
Yeah, and I actually, so this is, that's a good, let's see, bring to front. I think I might make 3 components for this. So.
Oh, like you have it, like you've dug it up, but you haven't identified it yet?
Yeah.
The middle state?
So I would actually make this a little bit bigger. So this is also assuming a little bit of movie magic, that these are one things that the development team can support and help you make, and or that they would like to make.
So Val suggests undiscovered. Perry says hidden. Uriel says undiscovered. Hugh says missing. Deanna says hidden. So we could take our pick. It looks like undiscovered and hidden are the top ones so far.
I like undiscovered.
I do too.
I think for now I'll just put a little circle in here. And this is a reminder for myself to find a little piece of artwork. Let's see, right to front.
Richard, that's a great question. Richard's wondering if do we envision a future for an out-of-the-box solution by Adobe to create apps from XD without code? I don't know the answer to that question, but I would encourage you to tune in to Howard Pinsky's stream on Fridays. He does a stream called XD Masterclass, and he might have a little bit more information for you than I currently have. Ooh. Voodoo Val says, found could be unearthed.
Ooh. Ooh. Is it one word or 2?
I think it seems like it should be 1. Let me do a quick Google search.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I like that. Unearthed, identified, and
it's 1 word.
Awesome. I like that. That goes well with undiscovered. So I'm going to make this a component as well too. So I think I may have done this backwards, but we'll see. So I'm going to make this a component, and then up inside of my components, I'm actually going to add a new state for unearthed. Oops. Select, I'm in unearthed. So I'm going to cut those out of there and paste them into here. And then, whoops. Scoot you over a little bit. I can delete that. Let's see if that worked. So inside this component, oh no, that did not work. The default state, hide you. Hide you.
Nice.
Default, unearthed.
I should be able to help you here, but I would have done what you just did. So I'm a little bit perplexed.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, oh, here. Let's take a look at the layers. Ew, I may have, did I delete something out of here?
I wonder if hide just deleted
here.
it. Uh-oh.
Maybe these. Let's see. We're gonna undo this component. So I'm gonna have this here. I may have deleted the other ones. I'll put you guys in here too. Front. Send you to back. Discovered. This is dirty, but YOLO.
That's right. We're doing it.
All right. So
I mean, we only have about 10 minutes, so we got this.
Sweet.
We can have fun with it.
So I created one component with everything inside of it and grouped it. And then I'm going to, so this guy's the background. And just, let's see. So I want this fossil, and you are unearthed.
Yes.
Hide undiscovered.
Still has dirt on it. And Blathers has not identified it.
Hopefully the components are okay with this. So we'll see how this goes. So hide unearthed. Then this and identified. Try to keep this generally the same. Hide unearthed.
Yeah, so S. Kanumili, that's a good question. Is wondering, can you talk about good practice on layer naming, and do you have to name layers before handing off to developers? If you want to handle that, Noelle, you can, or I can just chime in while you're working.
Yeah, do you want to start real quick and I'll hop in?
Sure. Yeah, so in general, Noelle was saying earlier, it's best practice to always name your layers. Just because it helps organizing everything a lot more efficient, but also it allows you to do things like auto animate and some prototyping tricks a lot more easily than if you were to just sort of haphazardly use a bunch of untitled layers. So general recommendation is always to name your layers.
Yeah, and yeah, generally I understand sometimes, like you can tell sometimes I'm really good about it and sometimes I drop off. I don't often have developers really care about the layer naming. It's mostly inside of prototyping with the auto animations that it actually starts to become a problem. So It's a good habit to get into.
So it's more for yourself as a designer than the developers, sounds like.
Yeah, and also if you when you leave a job or another designer comes in to pick up some of the work that you're on, it's also just really goodwill to send to another designer so that they don't have a crazy messy file to deal with.
Yeah. Probably puts you on good footing right away, I'm sure.
All right, so let's see if how this works.
Hey Roy, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you tomorrow. We're going to be live again tomorrow, same time, same place. Right here on Behance. So make sure you come back then, Roy.
State.
And yeah, we're going offline in about 7 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Time is
so
literally
fast.
flying.
All right, let's see if this works. And state 3 will be that undiscovered.
And if you're curious about what Noelle's doing right now, she's trying to create different component states for this button.
So what I'm hoping is that I can
Hey!
Yes. All right, it worked. Cool. So what this allows what this allows me to do is now I have one component and I just have to go inside of here and change the default state to the different components.
Cool.
So this is something that I use a lot for buttons, table cells, like any sort of component that you're going to repeat across your user interface.
That's really cool.
Like,
nice job figuring that out.
Yay! I'm glad.
You're like, just give me a minute. I'm gonna use my brain.
Like, I know we can do this. So like, for example, if I had a couple different products, I could show that like, okay, this one I've identified and this one is undiscovered.
I like that a lot.
So let's see, what's one that's, we'll make you an identified. So plesiosaurus neck. Oops. No.
You got this.
Ah, you are sitting in front. Send it back. There we go.
Hey. Something that I appreciate about XD, and super minor, but when you copy and paste text, it automatically adopts like the formatting for what was there before. I find that really useful. I don't know about you, but I have to do like the paste with copied formatting shortcut all the time in other programs.
Yeah, it's huge, especially when you're working like with a design system. Like you want to, as much as possible, stick within the design and typography that you set up at the beginning. One thing that I always ask my developers is if they see something that's not attached to the design system, to like come let me know, so that I can fix it and reattach it. And that like they shouldn't build anything that's not actually built within the design system.
Well, that's a really good tip.
Yeah.
So it looks like we've got about 4 minutes left, which 4-ish. And so whenever you feel comfortable, feel free to keep working. But at some point, I think it might be nice to show people like kind of what we worked on today, and then we can give them an indication of what you'll work on tomorrow so that they know what they're coming back for.
Totally. Yeah. So today I talked a lot of kind of like basics of setting up your design comps and what sizes to work at, and a little bit about the differences between iOS and Android with their sticker sheets. And then today we did kind of a couple iterations of what it would look like to scroll through a list of fossils. So one long scroll and then another 2-column. Yeah, and then playing around with a couple detail pages. So what this might look like if you tap on one of these cells.
I think it looks awesome. And you got to play around with some cool tools like repeat grid and components and component states. And you kind of made a lightweight design system using, material components. So I think it's really cool. It's coming together.
Yeah. Yeah. And like just it's componentizing and systemizing, like it makes your job so much easier in the end. And also helps like the development team build stuff faster as well too.
Yep. And they will thank you for that. And you probably will keep your job for a lot longer if you do things like that.
Yeah. Your developers are your best friends.
Cool. Yeah, well, so tomorrow it looks like we'll probably try to tackle a couple more of the pain points. Are you thinking maybe the focus tomorrow will be on something else? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think I probably want to do a little bit of prototyping, and then I might also, maybe work on one of the other features, and we can like talk a little bit about lacing them together.
Cool. That sounds great. Do you think that you'll be still working on like wireframes tomorrow, or will you play around with some like screen design? What's your gut say?
Yeah, my gut says for sure wireframes. My visual design skills are all right, but not super great. So I might continue to do wireframes. But
do what you want.
Yeah, I might, if I feel kind of crazy tonight, maybe do some visual design. But likely we'll probably stick with some wireframes and prototyping.
Cool. Sounds fun. Okay, so it sounds like tomorrow we got a plan. We're going to work on some more designs, some wireframes. We're going to get to some prototyping. So make sure you come back tomorrow. It's going to be right here, same time, same place on behance.net/Adobe Live. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for joining us. You can always join the live chat on Behance. That's where we're reading the chat. I should have mentioned that a lot earlier. Let's just say bye to everyone in the chat. So Fergie's still hanging out. Laura, S. Kunamili still here. Roy already left. Richard. Ravindra, sorry I didn't see you earlier. You said hi. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for giving us questions.
Thank you so much.
Cool. All right. Talk to you all soon and see you tomorrow. Thanks again.